Most men never get what they want from women. Not because women are complicated, but because men are predictable. If you act like every other guy, you'll get treated like every other guy, ignored, friend-zoned, or used. But what if I told you that getting what you want from women is actually predictable? Once you understand how their psychology really works, this isn't about tricks. It's not about manipulation or fake confidence. It's about understanding the subtle emotional triggers that guide a woman's behavior and learning how to naturally position yourself in a way that makes her want to give you what you're after, whether it's attention, attraction, loyalty, intimacy, or even a relationship on your terms. Because once you see how female psychology really operates, it's almost unfair how easy things become. Most men never get what they want from women, not because women are complicated, but because men are predictable. If you act like every other guy, you'll get treated like every other guy, ignored, friend-zoned, or used. But what if I told you that getting what you want from women is actually predictable? Once you understand how their psychology really works? This isn't about tricks. It's not about manipulation or fake confidence. It's about understanding the subtle emotional triggers that guide a woman's behavior and learning how to naturally position yourself in a way that makes her want to give you what you're after, whether it's attention, attraction, loyalty, intimacy, or even a relationship on your terms. Because once you see how female psychology really operates, it's almost unfair how easy things become. The reason most guys struggle is simple. They approach attraction like it's a transaction. If I do this for her, she'll like me. If I'm nice enough, she'll pick me. If I stay consistent, she'll realize I'm the one. But women don't fall for logic. They respond to emotional experiences. If you can give her a feeling she can't get from anyone else, you win. That's it. That's the whole game. But here's the catch. That feeling she's looking for, it's not comfort. It's not security. It's not stability. It's emotional stimulation. It's tension. It's wondering what's next. It's feeling like she's chasing something slightly out of reach, but too addicting to walk away from. That's the mental space where her desire lives. And if you don't know how to create that space, you'll always be fighting for her attention instead of effortlessly attracting it. Here's where most men screw it up. They meet a woman they like and immediately start giving too much. Too much time, too much attention, too much validation. They respond instantly, text paragraphs, over-explain everything, always try to be available. It feels like effort, but to her, it looks like desperation. And here's the psychology behind that. The moment a woman feels like she has too much access to you, your value drops in her eyes. Not because she's shallow, but because the part of her brain that's wired for attraction is constantly scanning for status, mystery, and emotional momentum. When she doesn't have to work for your attention, when there's no challenge, no unpredictability, her mind checks out. She still might like you, but she won't feel drawn to you. She won't feel that inner pull that makes her think about you when you're not around. Now imagine the opposite scenario. A man who's calm, self-contained, and doesn't chase. He's not rude, he's not cold, but he's just not pressed. He doesn't try to impress her with constant updates or long conversations. He gives her moments of connection, then disappears into his own world. No explanations, no apologies, just silence. What happens? She starts wondering, did I say something wrong? Is he losing interest? What is he doing? Her mind starts creating stories. And the moment she starts doing that, he's already ahead. That's the psychological trigger known as intermittent reinforcement. It's the same thing that makes slot machines addictive. When the reward is uncertain, the brain stays engaged longer. That unpredictability makes her feel more invested, even if she can't explain why. But this doesn't mean you should ignore her for days or treat her poorly. That's just immature and will backfire. What you do instead is manage your presence. You control your availability. You create space. You stop texting just because you're bored. You don't always pick up her call. You delay your responses, not to play games, but because you have a full life. That kind of energy radiates value. It shows her that she's not your entire world, which ironically makes her want to become a bigger part of it. One of the biggest lies men believe is that women want constant attention. Number. What they want is attention from someone who's not desperate to give it. They want to feel chosen by someone who doesn't need them. That dynamic flips everything. It makes her work harder. It makes her value your time. It puts her in a position where she starts thinking, what do I need to do to keep his attention? And once that question hits her mind, everything changes. That's when you've created emotional leverage. That's when you've stopped being an option and started being a priority. But attention control is just one piece. If you want to get what you want from women, you need to give off something even more powerful than mystery, and that's emotional safety mixed with challenge. Let me explain. If you're just exciting and unpredictable, she'll eventually walk away. If you're just emotionally stable and nice, she'll get bored. The sweet spot is being both. You need to be the guy who makes her laugh, makes her think, and makes her feel safe, but also keeps her on her toes. That balance is rare, and that's why it works. It's not about being perfect. It's about being centered. A man who knows what he wants doesn't overreact and doesn't feel the need to explain himself constantly. He listens more than he speaks. He observes more than he chases. He sets the tone instead of reacting to hers. Let's take an example. A woman tests you. Maybe she makes a sarcastic comment, tries to make you jealous, or tells you some guy hit on her. Most guys either get insecure or try to outcompete. But a man with real emotional control? He smirks. Maybe he changes the subject. Maybe he hits her with a playful comeback like, he probably saw your crazy side and walked away. No drama, no defensiveness. That little moment tells her something huge. This man isn't affected. And that makes her feel something she rarely feels. Respect mixed with attraction. Women constantly test men to find out where they stand. Not consciously all the time, but it's baked into their psychology. And if you pass those tests by staying grounded and unbothered, she starts to view you differently. You're no longer the guy trying to impress her. You're the guy she can't quite figure out, but she wants more of. That's where power in a relationship begins. And it's not fake. You're not pretending to be detached. You're actually detached because your happiness doesn't depend on her reactions. You're not chasing approval. You're living your life and letting her earn a spot in it. And that brings us to one of the most overlooked things that separates the men who always get what they want from the ones who never do. Standards. If you don't have clear standards for how you want to be treated, you will accept anything. You'll tolerate disrespect. You'll let things slide that should have been addressed. And what happens when you do that? She loses respect. Even if she still likes you, she'll see you as someone she can walk over. But if you have the courage to walk away from anything that doesn't align with your values, you gain massive power. Because now you're not just attractive, you're unchangeable. You're the kind of man who can't be manipulated, guilt-tripped, or emotionally blackmailed. Most guys are too scared to lose a woman, so they fold. They say yes when they want to say no. They let her dictate the tone. But the men who always get what they want, they don't operate like that. They lead. They have direction. And because of that, women naturally follow. Not because they're being controlled, but because the man is controlling himself. And nothing is more attractive than that. There's a moment in every woman's mind where she quietly decides if she's going to treat you like an option or like a man she doesn't want to lose. And that moment is always triggered by how she feels in your presence. Not what you say, not how expensive your clothes are, but how you make her feel about herself and about you. If you're too available, too agreeable, or too easy to figure out, she doesn't feel a challenge. She doesn't feel emotionally pulled in. And that's the beginning of disinterest. No matter how attracted she was at first. Think about it. When has any woman ever stayed obsessed with a man who constantly tried to prove himself to her? It never happens. Why? Because when a man constantly tries to show a woman that he's worthy, it signals that, deep down, He doesn't think he is, and women are wired to pick up on that instantly. They might not say it out loud, but they feel it. It shows in how quickly their tone shifts, how fast their replies become colder, how suddenly their excuses start showing up. You haven't done anything wrong, technically, but you've changed how she feels about you. And when that happens, it's game over unless you know how to reverse the power dynamic. Reversing it starts with subtraction, not addition. You stop giving so much energy to her. You stop over-explaining, over-committing, and overstaying. You start creating absence. You let silence do the talking. When a woman feels like you're pulling back, not in a dramatic or needy way, but in a calm, grounded way, her mind naturally becomes alert. It's survival-based psychology. The same man who used to flood her with attention now feels distant. Her brain starts scanning for what changed. Why isn't he as available? Did I mess up? Is he losing interest? And right there, the power starts shifting, because now she is investing mental energy. She's doing the chasing internally, whether she admits it or not. And that's the part most men never access, because they don't have the patience. They're so afraid of losing a woman's attention that they never give her the space to miss them. They don't understand that desire is born in absence, not presence. It's not how often you're around that makes her crave you. It's how she feels when you're not. When you leave her with just enough emotional connection, then pull back, she becomes addicted to closing that gap. It's not toxic, it's not cruel, it's natural polarity. Women chase what makes them feel alive. And the biggest mistake a man can make is trying to secure something with a woman before she even feels that hunger for him. But here's the twist most guys never think about. If you want her to feel safe and excited, it's not just about how you show up in front of her, it's how you carry yourself when she's not even around. When you live a life that has direction, that's full of purpose, people notice, and women especially notice. Because now, you're not just giving her attention, you're showing her that you have options. And that energy, that unspoken confidence, it's magnetic. A woman can instantly feel when she's not the center of your world. She might act like she doesn't like it, but deep down, it makes her want to earn her place in it. A man with purpose is dangerous, not because he's unpredictable, but because he's untouchable. He can't be controlled with beauty. He can't be swayed by compliments. He doesn't abandon his values just to keep someone around. That kind of man becomes unforgettable, not because he's the best looking or the richest, but because he's the rarest. Most men will bend, compromise, and abandon their standards just to hold on to a woman who's half interested. But a high-value man? He lets go without hesitation. He doesn't beg for validation. He doesn't over-explain. He simply walks. And his absence speaks louder than any argument ever could. And that's the key. The man who always gets what he wants doesn't fight to convince a woman. He makes her feel like losing him would be a mistake. He doesn't do this by threatening her. He does it by being so solid in his self-worth, so grounded in who he is, that she starts adjusting her behavior just to stay in his world. That kind of power doesn't come from lines or strategies. It comes from control. Not control over her, but control over yourself. Your reactions, your needs, your emotions. That's the thing most men skip. They think being attractive means becoming someone else. It means becoming more of who you really are, just with stronger boundaries and zero need for approval. The moment a woman senses that you want her approval more than you want your own peace, she loses respect. It's almost instant. And from that moment on, the relationship is off balance. You're chasing, she's deciding. You're proving, she's judging. And even if she sticks around, she'll never give you her best self. Because women don't give their best to the guy who's always available. They give it to the man who makes them rise to meet him. The man who doesn't lower his standards just to keep things easy. The man who knows that short-term discomfort is worth long-term respect. And here's what's wild. Once you embody this mindset, you don't even have to ask for what you want. Women start giving it freely. They start anticipating your needs, checking in more, showing up differently. Not because you demanded it, but because they feel the shift in energy. You're no longer in that low value space of trying to please her or avoid tension. You're leading. And when a man leads with calm, unapologetic confidence, women follow naturally. It doesn't matter if it's early in the connection or you've known her for months. That polarity is always what drives desire. Always. Most guys never experience that shift because they're too stuck in scarcity. They're terrified of walking away, so they tolerate behavior that chips away at their value. But the man who's confident enough to step back when something feels off, he always wins long term. Even if she walks, he wins because he didn't compromise his core. And 9 times out of 10, she comes back because she remembers how it felt to be around a man who couldn't be controlled. The interesting thing is, when a woman starts to sense that you're not moved by her games, her delays, or her hot and cold behavior, something in her brain short circuits. Not because she's confused, but because she's suddenly dealing with something she rarely sees. A man who's not emotionally reactive. A man who doesn't flinch when she pulls back, who doesn't chase when she gets distant, and who doesn't beg for clarity when she becomes vague. You become an emotional mystery, and women are drawn to that like a magnet. Not because you're pretending, but because you've trained yourself not to act out of fear. That's why you see women obsessed with men who aren't even chasing them. It's not about the man being a jerk. It's about the emotional weight he holds. He creates tension. He's not trying to rush through the moment, and he doesn't act like he's afraid of losing her. When a man moves like that, with calmness and control, she feels something she can't explain. Her walls start lowering, not because she was persuaded, but because she feels safe with a man who clearly doesn't need her validation. That emotional independence triggers attraction on a level that words can't touch. And here's where things get really powerful. When you combine that calm energy with intention, you become the kind of man she can't stop thinking about. You're not just silent for no reason. You're silent when you need to be. You don't respond to games, but you do reward honesty. You don't chase attention, but you do give your time to those who value it. You aren't rude or distant just to appear cool. You simply don't invest in anything that doesn't match your standard. That combination, it's like psychological pressure. She can't tell if you're into her or not, and that unpredictability keeps her attention locked in. But none of that works unless you genuinely believe you're the prize. And that's where a lot of guys break down. They try to act high value without feeling high value. So it comes off fake, forced, like a mask they're wearing until they get rejected or ignored. And that's the problem. If you're constantly looking outside of yourself for signs of approval, then you're not really in control. You're reactive. And reactive men don't influence women. They chase them. They overcompensate. They push too hard. They expose their neediness in a million small ways that women pick up on instantly. That's why the game really changes when you stop seeing women as the goal and start seeing you as the goal. When your focus is on your discipline, your standards, your mission, then every interaction with a woman becomes an option, not a necessity. And ironically, that's when women start respecting you more, because you're not bending for them. You're not adjusting your tone just to keep them comfortable. You're showing up as yourself, unapologetic, grounded, and focused. That presence makes women want to lean in, because you feel like a man who doesn't need them, but still chooses them. You want to get what you want from women? Then stop putting them on pedestals. Not in your mind, not in your conversations, not in your behavior. See them clearly. Flawed, emotional, complex human beings. Not prizes. Not puzzles to solve. Just people. And when you do that, your energy naturally becomes more calm, more detached, more in control, You're no longer operating from a place of, I hope she likes me. You're evaluating, you're observing, you're seeing if you actually like her. That switch in mindset is subtle, but it's everything. Because now she feels like she has something to prove too. And that, right there, is the point where the dynamic flips. What most guys never understand is this: attraction is not about convincing someone, it's about creating an emotional environment where the other person wants to prove themselves to you. You do that by not being predictable, not in a manipulative way, but in a strong, self assured way. You don't rush to respond, you don't overtext, you don't go out of your way to please. Instead, you give just enough, and then you pull back. You let her feel that emotional space. You let her wonder, you let her think, because it's in that space of uncertainty that her emotional investment begins to grow. And yeah, sometimes she won't respond how you expect. She might test you, she might pull away, she might act like she doesn't care. But if you stay grounded, if you don't react, if you hold your position like a man with options, guess what? She'll start feeling the weight of your absence. She'll start replaying your conversations. She'll reread your messages. She'll wonder what she did wrong. And she'll begin to crave your validation. And when that shift happens, that's when you have influence, not control, not manipulation, influence, the power to shape the dynamic without saying a word. Because here's the thing: women fall for how you make them feel, not what you tell them. You can spit the smoothest lines in the world, but if you make her feel like she has total control, she'll get bored. On the other hand, you could say almost nothing, but if your energy makes her feel like she has to earn your attention, she'll stay hooked. It's not about being cold. It's not about being rude. It's about being a man who doesn't chase what isn't chasing him. That's where your strength is. And once you start showing up like that consistently, you'll be shocked at how women start shifting their energy. Even the ones who used to treat you like an option will start circling back, not because they changed, but because you did. Because now you're no longer emotionally available at the drop of a hat. You're not answering calls at midnight. You're not jumping through hoops. You're not reacting to breadcrumbs. You've raised your bar, and the world responds to that. Women especially. They might resist it at first. They might try to push back. But eventually they realize that you're not like the others. You're not easily impressed. And that mystery, that energy of being hard to access, that's what keeps them hooked. The truth is, getting what you want from women isn't about tactics or tricks. It's about alignment. When your values, your boundaries, and your energy are all in sync, you don't have to force anything. You become magnetic. And women feel it. You don't just attract their attention, you earn their respect. And that's what keeps them coming back. Because respect is the foundation of real desire, not lust, not infatuation. Respect. When she respects you, everything else follows. There's this moment that happens when a woman finally realizes she can't shake you. Not emotionally, not mentally, not even with silence. She sees you're not chasing her, not reacting, not falling into the usual patterns of neediness or approval seeking. And that's when everything changes. That's when the desire kicks in on a much deeper level. Because now, you've done something that only the rarest men ever managed to do. You've taken away her sense of control without ever raising your voice, begging, or trying to win her over. She starts double-checking her messages before she sends them to you. She starts wondering if she said something wrong. She replays your conversations in her head. And without you even trying, she begins to want to win you over. That's the shift. That's the psychological moment when a woman moves from being casually interested to emotionally invested. And the reason that happens isn't because you pulled some manipulative trick, it's because you showed her consistently that you don't need her attention to feel complete. You've got your own life, your own direction, and she's either going to meet you at your level or she's going to lose you. And the truth is, most women have never experienced that. They're used to men caving in, men apologizing for things they didn't even do, men trying to keep the peace at all costs. So when a man shows up and calmly draws a line, not to punish, But to protect his own peace, he stands out. He becomes the man she respects. And from that respect grows something even more powerful, a kind of admiration, the kind that doesn't fade with time. Because she didn't get you easily. You made her work for it. You made her rise to the challenge. You didn't hand over your time, your energy, or your validation just because she smiled at you. You made her feel like being close to you is something she has to earn. And that's how you get what you want from women, consistently, not by demanding it, not by hoping for it, but by raising your standards and staying grounded in them, no matter how attractive she is or how strong the temptation is to fold. Women don't fall for the man who's nice to them. They fall for the man who makes them feel something: excitement, uncertainty, tension, curiosity. They need to feel emotionally activated. And that doesn't happen when everything is predictable. It happens when your presence forces them to self-reflect, when your energy makes them question their own value, when your calmness exposes their chaos. That's what leaves a mark. Now, of course, this doesn't mean you become cold or emotionless. That's where some guys take it too far. This isn't about becoming a statue. It's about emotional leadership. You lead by being in control of your state, by being selective with your time, and by never placing a woman above your mission. Because once you start doing that, once you start making her the center of your attention, everything you built starts crumbling. She stops seeing you as the grounded man who had options, and starts seeing you as just another guy who's hoping to be picked. That's not who you are. You don't chase being picked. You choose, and you choose wisely. You don't accept disrespect, inconsistency, or confusion. If she's vague, you pull back. If she's cold, you don't try to warm her up. You match her energy and let her feel the absence of your warmth. If she disappears, you don't follow. You disappear completely. That's how you train people how to treat you. And women will test you to see if you're serious about those boundaries. The moment you break your own rules just to keep her around, she starts losing interest. But the moment you hold that line, even if it costs you her attention, you gain something more valuable: her respect. And that respect is what opens the door to everything else. Once she respects you, her behavior changes. She shows up softer. She communicates more clearly. She doesn't want to risk losing you again, because now she knows she doesn't get unlimited access to you just because she's pretty or flirty or used to being chased. She realizes that being close to you is a privilege, not a guarantee. That's what keeps her invested. That's what keeps her wondering. That's what keeps her interested, long after the initial spark fades. It's wild how simple this really is, once you truly understand the psychology behind it. The moment you stop trying to control women and start mastering your own energy, everything gets easier. You don't overthink texts. You don't stress when they pull away. You don't panic when the conversation slows down. You just keep living. You just keep building. And they come back. Not all of them, but the right ones. And when they do, they come back differently. They come back ready to match your energy. They come back ready to give. And if they don't, you're okay with that too. Because now you've tapped into a power most men will never understand. You're not trying to manipulate. You're not chasing attention. You're just moving with purpose, knowing that your energy is valuable, knowing that your peace is sacred, knowing that no woman, no matter how attractive, is worth you lowering your standards for. And once you truly live that way, once you stop needing anything from anyone, you start getting everything without even asking: respect, attention, desire. It all comes to you naturally, because you've become the man who doesn't chase it. And that man, that's the one women remember. That's the one they dream about. That's the one who sets the standard so high, they never see other men the same way again. Not because he was the loudest, not because he had the most money or the smoothest lines, but because he moved through the world like someone who knew exactly who he was and refused to change that for anyone. Watch the next video.